Well, finally, a source of reliable news. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, good news this past week. Facebook announced a new feature, the Facebook News tab. And actually, this effort, this global news partnership, is being headed up by CNN, former CNN reporter Campbell Brown, and to comfort those people who have been so disturbed by the fact that Facebook tends to be filled with fake news and unreliable information, and just anybody can post on there. They're going to create a special place where you can go and you can know that this is the kind of news that's been carefully vetted and is, let me read Campbell Brown's quote about it. When news is deeply reported and well sourced, it gives information that they can rely on. Stephen Green, I know that you're a fan of good journalism, and I know that you've been increasingly disturbed about how people can just post anything they want on Facebook. Isn't it good to know that there will be now a reliable headquarters, in a sense, America's newsroom right there on Facebook?
Well, I like good scotch more than I like good journalism, but the price of a good scotch keeps going up and up and up. You got to pay like $60 or $80 for a bottle now. But at any price, I can barely find any good journalism these days. I mean, they're talking about
learn to code.
Yeah, they're talking about, we're gonna give you better news by putting up the Washington Post. Oh, for crying out loud! I'm sure you guys already.
And the New York Times.
And the New York Times. Yeah, well, okay. Separate those Siamese twins of evil, right? Anyway, what drew me to blogging was this idea that it was a level playing field. All right, you didn't need a huge crew or anything. Just a one-man shop could go out there and write and find an audience. And I wanted readers to come to Vodka Pundit, of course, but I also wanted them to leave Vodka Pundit. Let me explain why. Ken Lane, who was another one of the early bloggers, his motto was about blogging, we can fact check your ass. And what he was saying was blogs always hyperlinked to the source material. So we wanted you to click those links so you could come back, so you could check us, so you could find out how right or wrong we were. And that beautiful flat level playing field, that idea that, yes, we want you to click on the links that we provide to leave our site and go read the source yourself was it was a source of immense power for this early blogosphere. Now, when you go to a social media site, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, instead of a level playing field, you're in a silo. And they don't want you to leave that silo. They do anything they can to keep you from leaving Twitter.com, to keep you inside the Facebook app. You've ever noticed how hard they make it for you to leave the Facebook app? Even when you click on a link, you get a thing that's right there still inside the Facebook app. They call it stickiness, and they want you to stick inside their silo. So Facebook may be talking about, we're going to add stuff from the New York Times, we're going to add stuff from the Washington Post, we're even going to finally pay them a fee for this content that we've been publishing without paying them for all this time. But all they're really doing is giving you a little slightly wider silo. They still want to keep you inside there where they decide what you see.
Now, Bill Whittle, Steve brings up a good point, because Facebook is going to compensate some of these content providers, including the Washington Post, and if New York Times comes on board. Apple News, I believe it was, or was it Apple or Google? They tried to do the same thing, and basically New York Times and Washington Post walked away. They said it wasn't enough money. Apparently Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, was able to pony up enough money to get these big publishers interested. But Bill, this poses an interesting situation for Facebook, because up till now they've essentially washed their hands of the matter of the nature of the content that gets on their platform, because they said, hey, we're just a carrier for this content. We're not responsible for what people or what publications put on here. But now they're going to have a newsroom, and they're going to be vetting and filtering some of this content in addition to with humans as well as with their algorithm. And they're going to be paying some of the providers of this news. Bill, have they just stepped over the line and gone from being a mere carrier to being a publisher, and therefore liable for the false information that they may advance?
Well, there's two things here that strike me as interesting in terms of following the money. First of all, if Facebook, which is the the mammal that followed the dinosaur, it's still alive. It's still making money. And so on some level, it makes me wonder if this whole thing is just not a giant fig leaf for them to pay basically subsidies to keep things like the Washington Times, Washington Post and the New York Times afloat. I mean, it's clear that these two giants and the rest of them are going out of business because of the damage they've done to their own reputation. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of guys learn to code. But
that's it. They're going to pull this video. You said the evil phrase.
Good. So it seems to me on some level to be just transferring money to them with some kind of, it's not like you couldn't link to a story before on Facebook. So they want to make it official. That seems to be part of it. Another part of it seems to me to be that actually, I think they're trying to strengthen their argument that they're a carrier and not a publisher.
Really?
I think by carrying news, they are basically saying, well, we're not a news agency. We carry news agencies like the New York Times and the Washington Post, but we're not a news agency. We just carry them. That's all we do.
But they're going to be hand selecting these stories, Bill, in some cases.
But that's the part that's not visible. The part that's visible is you can see New York Times stories and undoubtedly stories from Fox News as well. They'll sprinkle a few in there just to keep themselves out of prison.
News Corp is in on it.
And then they'll be able to say, okay, see, we just carry all the news. It's all we are. I think they're trying to strengthen their case as a carrier, and so on. But the thing that I think is most interesting about this is that this is the giant ground sloth coming to the rescue of the dying brontosaur. But what they don't realize is that the giant ground sloth is surrounded by these bright little hominids, and there's lots of them, and they have pointy sticks, and they don't understand. You would think people that deep into the entire internet and with those kind of resources would understand that centralization is over. It's done. The internet allows information to flow like water around whatever barrier you want to put up on it. And the more barriers you put up, the more the water of information is going to go flow someplace else. If you had just been honest, CNN and New York Times and Facebook and Twitter, if you'd just been honest, if you just had reported the news without determining what stories we get to see based on your personal philosophy, you would be in business for the foreseeable future because you would have credibility, but you don't. And so Facebook is simply another dinosaur that is on its – does anybody in the world think that we have not yet passed peak Facebook? Is there anybody who's thinking this Facebook thing, we need to be a part of it? People are abandoning it, and they're abandoning it because of the arrogance of the people running it. And this is just another example of that arrogance, trying to say, well, we're going to offer real news, and you can tell it's real news because this story has been suppressed by the New York Times. And that is some kind of a selling point for them, I guess. They're dumb. They're done.
I think Bill raises an interesting point, and that has to do with credibility, because Facebook is essentially positioning this. And what would you expect from Campbell Brown from CNN, who fancies herself an actual journalist, who's coming in there and basically saying people don't trust the news anymore. People don't trust what they see on social media. So let's set up a walled garden where there's trustworthy information, and you can come here and know that this is deeply reported and well sourced, to quote Campbell Brown's remarks about this. That would be great if you started out under the banner of an entity that has already garnered America's trust. And it's one thing to start out, if we had somebody that people liked and believed in and who had a reputation for being reliable and trustworthy. Frankly, I think that Johnson & Johnson could do a better job at this, because at least people are, taking their products into their home and putting them on their babies and putting them on their eyes and in their ears and trusting them, basically. However,
when their eyes are not exploding yet.
When it comes to reliability, I think Facebook misunderstands its role in the world, and Mark Zuckerberg has really lost touch with the original appeal of the platform. the original appeal of it was frankly the offbeat, the quirky, the relational, the personal. It's, the reason why my wife or her friends are scrolling through Facebook is not to say, gee, I wonder what the breaking news is from the New York Times, which I could just bop over to nytimes.com and see. They're going through there to see the pictures of the grandbabies and the pictures of the quirky and strange and interesting things that happen in this world. Facebook has really built an engine not on being a credible source for, well-sourced, deeply reported news, but just kind of being America's funniest home videos and being the family photo album and being, the place where you can go to see something that will make you smile, that will make you laugh, that will make you even cry or sometimes pony up a little money for somebody who's in a bad situation. You can't just take that and transfer it over and said, hey, you remember how much you love watching that video about that cat and that baby on Facebook? Well, also the Washington Post. It just doesn't transfer over. And my guess is that this is going to fade as quickly as it arose. And if nothing else, the only real purpose of this is just for Facebook to put a little window dressing on a problem they've been having and to try to avoid a little longer the attacks of people like Senator Elizabeth Warren, who are saying break up this monstrosity by saying, look, we're providing a service where truth can get out and fake news is suppressed. I don't give it more than 2 years when they'll announce that they are phasing this out because something new and better has come along. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.